Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan here with a response video on some of the comments I've been getting in two areas. Oh, I poked the bear with the Yang Gang. So check out that video and the comments in there. It's a bit of a thread, although I'll hit the highlights today. But first, I want to talk about another video that I got some comments on. This was about a screenwriter's rant on a video game called Life is Strange. Now, if you watch it, you could see some of the stills from it, or if you watch the trailer, you can see that the game is very obviously aimed at a female core audience. And let me rattle off some of the elements of the game. Emotion, colors, relationships. Relationships, doggy. Don't talk over me. These are three very core female-centric things that would be perfect for a video game. Now, I'm not knocking the video game. Actually, I think it's kind of good. But I understand its audience. Its audience is mostly women. Now, that doesn't mean there are certain men who would play the game. There are men who are more feminine. There are guys who are so numb to regular video games, they just need something different, and they'll play anything, and they'll say, oh, this is different. But I don't think they'd call it their favorite. And, you know, there are actually people like me. I'm a storyteller, so I might play the game just because, hey, it's story-driven. Right, Joan? Here, you come back. You big mouth. You big mouth. Anyhow, and I was thinking that, you know, if I went to my coworkers, and I work with a lot of guys where I work, and I won't say where, they, you know, out of maybe 36 men who work there, I would probably be the most likely candidate to play that game. It's called Life is Strange, True Colors, by the way. And, you know, they would not play that game. They wouldn't pick it. If I invited one of them to my house, say, hey, we're going to play video games, and I put that in, oh, play this. They'd be like, what the hell is this, dude? You know, because the game is about relationships, too. And it's like, oh, will Frank date me? Let me push the right response. Like, that's not a guy thing. It has nothing to do with whether or not it's women or men. You know, if it was a guy dating game, it would be very different. It would be very different. You know, this is a game about her coming to a beautiful small town, and, you know, it's just so nice, and the people are nice, and they're so different. You know, a guy game would be like, you go to Vegas, and there are these hot women, and everyone's hotter than the next. That would be a guy dating game. Now, this game isn't dating. It's about, it's kind of about a mystery, and I think it's very similar to the Nancy Drew games, which they do have, Nancy Drew video games. Extremely popular, by the way. I did a video on, like, one of the last ones and how kind of disappointed it was. And a lot of people wrote to me and said, yeah, the game used to be great, and now it just sucks. But in this one, you know, they're writing to me like, oh, come on, you know, women have a broad thing, and this isn't aimed at any particular sex. Let me repeat again. Emotion, colors, and relationships. And mystery. Now, guys like that, too. They like the mystery aspect of games. But a more guy-centric sort of mystery is one of these horror games where there are monsters. And then there are scenes where you fight the monsters. They like action. And it's not 100%, but it's pretty high. It's definitely the majority. And I'm not knocking the game. I think it's probably a decent game. But it's aimed at women. And there's nothing wrong with that. Women have demanded, in fact, women have demanded video games aimed at them. Where are the women games? Where are they? Here they are. Here's one of them. What are you complaining about? Why are we arguing over whether it's a male or female game? It's obviously female. It's female-centric. Colors, okay. Colors, women are biologically wired to see colors more nuanced than men. Men see contrast, women see the subtleties. It's an evolutionary thing for when they were raising children. They'd have to know Note if their baby was flush or a little pale or whatever. You know, relationships. Women are into relationships. Have you met women? Have you met women? And finally, emotion. Look, women are more intuitive. There's nothing wrong with it. And they're more emotional. There's nothing wrong with it. They're just different. So, you know, it's okay to have a women-centric video game. It's okay to say that it's women-centric. Get off my back, gamers. Okay, Yang Gang. Now we're going to talk about Yang. So I got a lot of response from that, for me. And a lot of people defending Yang. And they had this one commenter, and I'm not trying to call anybody out here, but I like to talk about. I thought your comments were interesting, and I responded to this. So I said, you know, UBI can't work. You can't just print money. And he had like a numbered response. So he wrote, all money in existence is printed, and to say that someone supports the printing of money doesn't make any sense. If it's not printed or digitally created, then it wouldn't exist. Which completely, of course, deflects the point. The point is, oh wow, where the hell's my response? My response not show up here? Wow. Wow, my own response was edited? Oh, wow. Jesus. How did my response not get in here? Oh, here it is. No, that's not it. Is this it? Is this it? I can barely see it. I'll have to edit it to see it. All right. So I responded to his first point. Don't be cringe. I'm not interested in a semantic game. Printing money is creating money, digitally or whatever. Creating money that has nothing to back it. The value is all money. So just stop playing games, please. I mean, that to me is a typical sort of leftist argument. Oh, man, wow, you really make this impossible to do, YouTube. You just make it impossible for me to look at my own damn comments. God. Okay, I'm just going to go through his. I could probably respond. Number two, people will count the government spending as debt and as GDP. He acknowledges that, but Yang's policy addressed this. A person who invented the concept of GDP himself said that it's a terrible measure to tell how the country is doing, and no one should ever use it as that. Yang is trying to fix that by upgrading what's called the American scorecard that would effectively measure outcomes that matter to Americans, like how clean the water and air are, freedom from substance abuse, and declines of stress in the household, child success rate in school. The list is long. Yeah. And that's a utopian vision that can't work. You cannot make an American scorecard that makes any sense. Okay? Look, I've been doing role-playing games since the 70s. And you know, in a score, you just got to assign points to everything, right? So let's say I assign points to, I don't know, substance abuse. All right. So for every person who goes into rehab, we're going to count them as one. Well, that's one metric, except not everybody that goes to rehab recovers. So do we count the recoveries? Or do we count just the people who go? Well, let's say, okay, no. We'll count the recoveries. Oh, okay. So anybody who completes the 90-day program is a recovery? Maybe, but some of them get out and lapse right back into the drugs hard. Okay, so we'll back it up to 30 days. If they stay clean 30 days, then that's a win, and blah, blah, blah. Okay. You know, so it's just a constant, like, you cannot measure these things. Because there are people who would go 30 days, they'd get out of rehab, go 30 days. Addicts lapse. They just do. So the metric would effectively become useless. And I have no confidence that Andrew Yang is even going to go through the steps I just outlined. He's going to say, okay, how do we measure this? Oh, well, let's measure by how many people are in rehab. Oh, okay. You can't measure how many people actually are no longer addicts, because that takes years. you'd have to measure like 2 years down the road. Like somebody who's been off heroin for 2 years, they're still addicts, but after 2 or 3 years, then they're probably not going to lapse. The longer they're off it, the less they're going to lapse. Another thing, like stress. You can't measure stress. How do you even measure that? Or are you going to count the heart attacks, maybe? It's just pointless. This is a ridiculous utopian vision that Andrew Yang cannot deliver on. No. Now, you could say, like, well, it's a scorecard, but, it's just a rough estimate. It's not how it's going to work. Because the moment you have this American scorecard, they'll use it against Andrew. They'll use it in the media. They'll use it politically. It becomes a political tool to use it one way or another. Either they beat Andrew over the head with it, or Andrew says, look at the American scorecard. It's up to 85. What does that mean? Oh, it means things are much better. Except, you could still have a random number going up. You could still have problems. It doesn't friggin' mean anything. We had a terror alert system. Remember that under Bush? And it was colors. Oh, it's yellow. It's yellow. Now it's orange. Look out. Like, what did that mean? It meant nothing. It literally meant nothing. It was just used as a political tool to scare people. Now, Andrew's trying to go the other way with it. He's not trying to scare people, but that's the way it will go. So you can't measure all those outcomes, the American scorecard. It's just dumb. It's completely woke-tarded. Child success rate in school. How do you measure that? How do you measure that? Have you ever worked in a school? There are kids who, they're very bright, but their grades suck. And there are kids who get great grades, and they're not very smart. It's just the way it is. The system doesn't account for a lot of things. It's a effed up system. I got very good grades in school. Now you would think, you're smart. I'm pretty smart. But I have a knack for taking tests. I would see the patterns of the test. I wouldn't know the answers, but I could sense what the answers were by the way the test was worded. I could hear the leading question and where it would head, and I could look at the answers and note, okay, these two answers are bunk, this is the fake answer, that's the real answer. Did I know the material? Sometimes I did. A lot of times I did, actually. But the skill I had, I aced tests all through high school, all through grammar school. It was not a problem to me. Same thing with homework. I would do my homework on the bus. I had a 10-minute ride. I'd sit there on the bus, I'd go right down the list. Doop, 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 doop. I wasn't a genius. Maybe if you sat there and watched me, you'd say, oh my God, he's some sort of genius. Nah. Some of my answers were wrong. But once you got into that rhythm and knowing what the tests were, knowing how the questions were worded, your grades were so high it didn't matter. It didn't matter if you got one or two wrong. It didn't matter. But in a practical term, I didn't know things. If you had actually had a discussion with me about, I don't know, the American Revolution, at that time while I was studying the American Revolution, I might have an A+ on the test, and you'd talk to me and go, did you really read any of this? Sometimes I wouldn't even read the book. I didn't need to. So you cannot effectively measure these things. Andrew is a fool to think he can. He's arrogant to think he can. He's just got way too much on his plate, essentially. The one thing I gave him credit for in the video was he's acknowledging the teachers' unions are terrible. Not that he's going to, get rid of them. That's what you need to do. You need to get rid of the teachers' unions. You need to say, okay, this is a government program. We shouldn't have unions. No more unionized teachers. In New York? Yeah, good luck with that. Those guys are powerful. You'll never get rid of them. The only thing you can do is fight with them. And those people, in my view, are greedy, and they don't really care about children. They care about their pension, their money, and that's it. They could throw every kid under the bus and still get paid. I mean, we've seen it during this pandemic, right? Not in New York, but in California. You know, the school board laughing. They just want their babysitters back. They have utter contempt for you, in my view. I talked about the banks being insolvent, essentially. And he's like, this has nothing to do with Yang or his policies. But the point I was making is, the point he made was that, experts agree on Yang's policies. Well, these are the same experts who made the banks insolvent, who took us off the gold standard, who said debt is good. They are Keynesian, and that is most economic people. I mean, Paul Krugman is a Keynesian. He's won the Pulitzer Prize, it couldn't have been a Nobel Prize. I think it was the Pulitzer Prize for, I don't know, something in economics. Or maybe it was the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know. He's won some big fancy award for economics. He's terrible. He thought the internet was a joke. He thinks, he likes the idea. What was it? I guess it was an alien invasion. That things would get broken because then we could rebuild it and that would be good. It's a completely woke-tarded way of looking at economics. You have to look to the Austrian school. That's actual economics. But since all this debt allows for people to, get into a bank, leverage it up the yin-yang, buy themselves all kinds of fancy stuff, and then jump ship with a golden parachute, they love it. And that screws you, Yang Gang. And Yang's not going to stop that. And in fact, Yang has been taught by those very same people. Because I can see his policies. They're about giving people more money. And it won't work. You want to give people more money? Don't tax them. The Federal Reserve themselves hollowed out the dollar because they've been granted power to do so, not the economist. Well, that's just it. I had to say, I'm not trying to make fun of you, dude, but really, that is a dumb statement. Not the economist. Who do you think runs the Federal Reserve? What do you think? They hire grocery clerks? They hired economists to run the Federal Reserve. They are rife with economists, all Keynesian, of course. And again, it has everything to do with Yang's policies because Yang's policies are based in a Keynesian mindset. The idea that you can just keep leveraging and leveraging and leveraging and leveraging. Leveraging debt. Go buy a house, then leverage that house to buy a second house, then, rent that house and use that house to buy another house. I mean, that's what people do. And it works up to a point. The banks have limits. It works up to a point, and then if you get into trouble or there's a crisis like the virus, you're screwed. Now your renters can't pay, you can't pay the mortgage, the whole thing collapses. It also centralizes the power in a few individuals. So if I start leveraging myself and buying houses and renting them and buying more houses and renting them and so and so and so, and then a virus hits and nobody can pay the rent, I don't just lose one house, I lose dozens of houses. I lose my entire business, all the people who worked for me. It's a, what is it, a Potemkin village? Is that? No, that's the wrong term. Glass house? House of cards. That's what I was looking for. It's a house of cards. And it collapses. And that's what will happen to the banks one day. They're doing the same thing. Only they're not doing it with houses. They're doing it with risky investments because they know they can't lose. And nobody who puts their money in a bank cares because they know they're insured up to, I think it's $250,000. So, in the old days, prior to the FDIC, and this would be in the pre-40s, pre-FDR days. The FDIC didn't exist. So there were runs on the bank. This is like, during the Depression era. And the reason there were runs is because they were worried the bank had run out of money, and you'd have to get your money out before the bank ran out of money. And if you didn't, goodbye money. Then the government stepped in and said, we'll solve all the problems. We'll insure the banks. Well, now nobody cares where their bank invests. prior to that, they did. You had to know your banker. You had to know how they invested their money, or else you could lose it all. So you got $10,000 in the bank, and that's your life savings. You don't want some idiot, buying these risky stocks. You'd want somebody who was conservative, somebody who knew economics, Trump, somebody who knows how to make money, and you'd get interest, and that's why you'd leave the money in the bank. See, that's how economics actually works. Yang hasn't signed on for that. Yang thinks he can give everybody $1,000 a month and somehow the economy will grow. That money has to come from somewhere. And collecting the money and doling it out adds to more cost. And the people who get the money aren't any better at spending it either. Sadly, most of them. Creating a social safety net. UBI is not a social safety net. No. Where people can run the risk. People run the risk. Creating a social safety net where people run the risk of losing their benefits if they try to improve their situation, or having them jump through many red tape. God, your grammar's terrible. Doesn't mean that welfare doesn't work. It means it was designed poorly and the Americans need a better one. It can be updated. No, welfare doesn't work, and I wanted to. Here, I'll let Joan down. She's just doesn't want to be in videos. She wants to go back to her sunbeam. So I'll tell you the parable of the Roman boar, right? I think I told this story before. So a wild boar comes to these villages in Rome. Nobody can stop him. It's goring people. Maybe it kills a guy, and so the villages around the area offer a reward. People come and hunt it. They can't kill the damn thing. So finally, this guy shows up. He says, "I'll get the boar. I'll solve your boar problem." So he goes out into the woods. He finds a clearing. He puts out a bunch of food. And at first, the boars don't look at the food. Maybe the young ones come up and sniff at it and run away. After a few days, every day putting out the food, the young boars come up and they start eating the food. Over a few more days, all the boars, including the powerful one, they come and they eat the food. Every day they come and they eat the food. After a few days of that, he comes out, he starts building, puts in a post in the ground, and immediately the boars run away. He puts the post in. Next day they show up. He's building again. This time they're a little hesitant, but they still eat the food as he builds a corral around them. And finally, on the last day, they get used to him. They get used to the corral. They go into the corral. There's only one opening. He puts the gate on. Now he has all the boar. Now they're trapped. And he goes back to the village and he collects his reward. The boars are welfare recipients. It's a trap. Once you start taking it, you won't get off of assistance. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. What does work is having an economy that's so robust that there's so many jobs that if you get fired, it won't matter. If you get fired, there's so many other jobs you'll be working in a week. That's what we had under Trump. There were hiring signs everywhere. Everywhere. It was not a problem getting a job. That wasn't the issue at all. And in fact, wages were starting to go up in real terms. That's what you need. That's the solution. What Yang's solution is ass backwards. He's going to take money from working people and give it to people who don't work, which incentivizes them not to work. If I have enough money to live, I won't work. I won't work. I'm telling you straight up. I'd stay here and I'd write books all day. I'd make comics. I'd play video games. I'd have a great life. Because I'm willing to lower my overhead to that level. So, that's what's going to happen if a guy like Yang gets into power. I'll just sit at home. Because why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I spend my time writing books? And so will a lot of other people. And their books will be terrible. So it's a dumb idea. You're incentivizing the wrong thing. If you want to incentivize something, bring more jobs. Lower the taxes. You want to give people money? Lower the taxes. Do you realize we pay taxes on unemployment? All that free money, free money that got doled out during the stimulus, we have to pay taxes on it like idiots. Why the F would you do that? Just give people the money. If you're gonna give out money, don't tax them on it. I guarantee you, if UBI was initiated, they'd tax the money. Oh, we get $1,000 a month. Wait a minute, this is only $846. Yeah, because they'll tax it. No, oh, here's the money. Oh, wait, we're going to take some back. That's the IRS. It's idiotic. You want to do something for people, get rid of the taxes. Slash them in half and then watch people thrive. Because it's like, oh, I got more money. I have less of a burden on myself. That's what we need. And then, number 6, this is a really dumb point. Cities are going broke because capitalism was designed that way. Absolutely not. It's totally woke-tarded. To move money to the top, UBI fixes it by putting the economic mobility back into the hands of people who are going to spend it at their local businesses. Says you. What local businesses are left, dummy? They're all gone in New York, that's for sure. Or most of them anyway. Local businesses? Yeah, I guess there are a few restaurants. If you're on UBI, you shouldn't be going to a restaurant. You're going to go to Walmart because everything there is cheap. That's not giving it to local businesses, right? If you're going to the bodega to buy your groceries, you're paying 3 times the rate. You have to go to Walmart. You have to go to a supermarket. You have to go to a bulk store, a big store, because that's where they're all cheaper. So no, that doesn't even work on its face. I mean, there's so much wrong with those sentences. I could do a whole video just on that. Cities are going broke because capitalism was designed that way. Why would the people? First off, you don't understand what capitalism is. It wasn't designed like 20 years ago or 100 years ago. It developed over the course of human history. It's the natural result of people trading back and forth. If you didn't have capitalism officially, you still have it. The Soviets had capitalism. It was all black market capitalism, but they had it. You'll have a black market. If you ban capitalism, you'll still have it. You could shoot people in the street. You'll still have capitalism. Dummy. As far as cities, I mean, capitalism created cities. That's how cities evolved. They were points of trade and commerce, and markets sprung up. And, oh, well, we got a lot invested here. Better put up a wall and get some soldiers. That's capitalism, too. People are so woefully ignorant of economics that you have to explain the most basic concepts to them, and they still go, oh, no. Oh, no. You can't just keep handing out money, dude. Somebody has to pay that bill. And guess what? It's going to be you if you have a job. Republicans didn't break California's economy. I don't know why I typed that. I didn't say that. Maybe I had a typo, but no, the Democrats did. The Democrats run the entire state now. They have a supermajority. There's no one else to blame. Any economy they have left is probably run by Republicans. You have companies moving out of the state. It's an absolute freaking disaster. But the Democrats keep doubling down. They're going to turn it into a socialist nightmare. And they're being bailed out by guys like Biden. So really, we're paying for it. We're paying for the mess that is California and a lot of other places. Finally, we have done the math, and it shows exactly what we expected, just like the results from a UBI study that was done in Stockton, California, where 125 residents received a basic income of $500 a month for 2 years, and they found that not only their mental health improved, but the local businesses saw an increase in sales. Persons were able to get better paying jobs, women were blah, 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 blah. And puppies and kittens rained from the sky. Yeah, that's 125 people at $500 a month. UBI, that's not UBI, number one. You can't live in Stockton, California at $500 a month. That's not a livable amount of money for anybody, anywhere that I can think of, maybe in a foreign country. Not in America. Maybe out in the boonies somewhere. But and you're talking about 125 residents. That's not what UBI is. UBI is everybody gets it. Because everybody will demand it. You're getting it. Why don't I get that money? I'm paying taxes. See how it works? Now, if you say, well, we're only going to give it to poor people. How did that work with welfare? It created more poor people. If you create UBI, it'll just create more poor people. Here's how it works. You got a line here, right? Everybody below that line is on UBI. They can't pay their bills, right? People just below it are like maybe $20 short every month, and it's eating away at them very, very slowly, but they're losing. They're gonna drop down if they don't improve their lot and get above this line. Everybody above that line is surviving, right? People just above the line, they're making an extra $20 a month, and they're getting by, and they got a little bit of extra money. Everybody right on that line, they're just breaking even. They're just getting through life. They're paying all their bills. They do everything just right, and I've been in that position. If you do everything just right and don't breathe the wrong way, yeah, you get through the month and you're good. Then a guy like Yang comes along and says, I'm going to fix it all. I'm going to give you UBI. Okay, where's that money come from? Well, got to come from somewhere. It's either taxes or some kind of fees or whatever. You're deluding yourself if you think it's going to come from the 1% of people way up here. You're absolutely delusional, because they'll try it, and then all those people will get out of it, or they'll only pay half or whatever, and there won't be enough money, so they'll go, well, we'll just, like New Jersey, they upped the tolls. They just raised all the tolls. Sky high now, the tolls are. We have tolls everywhere in New Jersey. So they raised the tolls. Well, that is a cost. Now the people on the line dip below it as the line goes up. Now they're down here. The people who are on the line, now they're losing $20 a month. The people who were just surviving and maybe getting an extra $20 a month, well, they're right at the line. And everybody above that, you got another guy, he had an extra $40 a month. Now he's only got 20. That's how it works. It's very, and you've created more people. You've created more people that now qualify for UBI. So now you got to pay them. And as you pay them, the line keeps moving up and up and up and up and up. And more people go down and below the line. That's math, dude. It's math. It's math and economics. And I wish to Christ you'd learn it. It's very simple. And I think most of the people who complain about this stuff and support Yang, they don't run businesses. They don't have to deal with employees who take advantage of you. and they complain and complain and complain. You're paying them. They're taking days off and they don't do their job. And you're like, I got to get rid of this idiot. And you can't, because you got to go through all these hoops and we can't just fire them. You ever have an employee, you have to fire them and they're real a-holes about it? Yeah. Then you'll suddenly become a Republican. Then you'll suddenly be, workers suck. Yeah, suddenly all those worker rights things go right out the window as you have a terrible employee who's willing to impose. I know a guy, I can't really talk about it, but he had an employee. She stole, apparently, a few $100, like $500, like right out of the till. It's just missing. Can't prove it was her, but she got fired. We're pretty sure it was her, but no one really knows. And can you imagine just stealing $500 right out of the till? That's pretty effing brazen. And you don't think that's going to happen, but it does. It does. It's hard to trust people with money, man. You don't know. All these people on YouTube and Twitter, you're all a bunch of kids. You don't know dick.